This is Jonah Dempsey, your host of the Human Design Deconditioning Guide. Today I'm going to be talking about the valley environment. What does it mean if your environment is valleys? Well, this is the fifth color environment. So we first have to understand and kind of position ourselves in this sixfold division of environments. And there's a continuity with the six environments, as well as the six dietary regimens, the six perspectives, the six motivations. Going deeper into substructure, there's a connection to the six tones. The six tones being smell, taste, outer vision, inner vision, feeling, and touch, right? At the level of color, there's a resonance with the six motivations. Fear, hope, desire, need, guilt, and innocence. There's all these correspondences. So, and then going up to the surface, there's a correlation to the six lines. The first line, investigator. The second line, hermit. The third line, martyr. The fourth line, opportunist. The fifth line, heretic. And the sixth line, role model. These are, of course, the lines of gate 10, hexagram 10, which has to do with roles. So this is the role gate. These are the role lines, what roles we play for each other. So you can see continuity at all these levels. So first, to understand, what does it mean to be a fifth color environment valley? Well, we see at the tone level that it's all about feeling. But feeling is not just, feeling's an ambiguous term. Feeling is really frequency. So it's actually about auditory frequency, but it's also about electromagnetic frequency. For instance, the fifth tone is highly sensitive to electrical frequencies, EMF, and so on. And it's more than that. It's a sensitivity to frequency. But sound, audio, that is the easiest way to understand frequency, right? Sound is kind of our default understanding of frequency, so we can start there. So we can say that valleys are specific auditory environments. Now there's narrow valleys and there's wide valleys. You have the narrow valleys on the left and the wide valleys on the right. To be a narrow valley is a very different kind of auditory environment than to be a wide valley. Narrow valley people might like to listen to music in headphones, or they might like to talk in headphones, talking on the phone. Wide valley, speakerphone. Wide valley has music on in the next room over. It's about creating the right auditory environment, the right acoustic environment where, for instance, in this case, you're really hearing something in the background. The piano is playing next door. The TV's on in the other room. You're working in the office, but you have the radio playing in the kitchen. You're creating the right acoustic environment. So what else can we say about valleys? So there's the narrow versus the wide. These are different acoustic environments. Narrow environments, you might like when someone talks directly right up to you. Hi, good to talk to you. Let's talk at this level. Wide valley, maybe they're over here. And they're kind of talking not really at you, they're just talking in general. There's a different sense of personal space. You can position yourself in the room where if you're wide valley, you're not really right next to the speaker. You're not really right next to where the sound is coming from. If you're narrow valley, there's a certain level of proximity that's comfortable to you. Now, these are all on the landscape side. All valleys are landscapes. But say you are in a hardscape. Say you're in a city. Well, it's not like there's nothing you can do. You can do something in that city. what you can do is, you find, if you're left variable valley, you find your correct environments that are narrow valleys. You're walking the streets, you're walking the alleyways, you're walking these tight, close, certain acoustic environments where there's really close by reflections. Or say you're wide valley, you find the parking lot, or you find the area where there's a certain level of expansiveness. That's what the wide valley is looking for. Now the other part of it is that left variable, it doesn't really matter what they're noticing, what they're seeing, because left variable is the observed, not the observer. So left variable, it's about being busy. It's about being active. Right variable needs enough stimulation to keep it from getting bored. It needs enough stuff to watch. The right variable is the real people watcher. So say you're wide valleys, that's right variable. Well, in that case, you're going to need, the parade. In that case, say you're right variable valleys, you're living in the city, maybe you find your cafe, and the cafe is in a town square or a plaza. That can be kind of like a wide valley. And that town square or plaza lets you look out over the plaza and see a lot of different people. It's that variety of people. First of all, just being right variable in general, it's nice to have something to watch. But then, being fifth color, we have a connection to the fifth line of the stranger, right? We have a connection. It's basically you're connected to the stranger, to the outsider, to the one, traditionally valleys have been where information travels, through merchant routes. This is like the Silk Road, stuff like that. And this information is exchanged through strangers. There's a harmony here with the second color, markets. But instead of the market being all the people in the community selling to each other, the valley is the trade route, where people from other communities come to your community. They, and you bring your goods to their community. So the valley is absolutely a place. If you're wide valleys, you need a certain variety of the kinds of people you're seeing. People from all over, a certain melting pot kind of thing. That doesn't mean you need to be in a lot of auras. You don't have to be in a lot of auras because you're still landscape, not hardscape. So your immune system still can't really handle the intensity of being packed in that subway, or packed in that office building, or packed in that elevator with all those different people. But nevertheless, there is this theme of the stranger and of the variety. And again, if you're left variable, narrow valleys, you're the one being watched in your environment. If you're right variable, wide valleys, you're the one watching. And this is just a generic, right? This is just, what is your ideal environment? Is your ideal environment the exhibitionist or the voyeur? So, talking about variable. If you're narrow valleys, then your tone is going to be either first, second, or third tone, because that's left variable. And if you don't know how to calculate your tone, you can go to humdes.com, HUMDES.com. It'll tell you your tone in the triangle here. And I'm talking about the design nodes. The design nodes. So, if you're narrow valleys, your tone is going to be either smell or taste or sight. Outer vision. So what that means is that what's important to you in discerning your correct environment is either going to be the environment that has the correct smell. It's a narrow valley that smells a certain way. Or it's going to be the narrow valley that tastes a certain way. A very discerning, a very particular kind of thing. Right? Where, because taste is always the most discerning tone. It's a very specific valley, this one and not any of the others. This is my place. Or, if it's third tone, outer vision, it's going to look the right way to you. You're going to know what the right environment is through vision. Now, say your right variable, say your wide valleys. If your wide valleys, it's a little different. Here you're going to have either outer vision, feeling, or touch. So again, say you're living in a city and you're out in your wide valley, you find your cafe that's right on a courtyard, or maybe there's a town square. And I realize this happens more in Europe than in elsewhere, than in the US and elsewhere, but it happens other places too. And you find your city where you have your wide valley, which is your correct acoustic environment. You hear, it could be a park, for instance, and you hear people laughing, or you hear someone playing music in the distance. And it's this correct acoustic environment for you. And what you're going to notice there, if you're fourth tone, is that there's not a lot of visual stimulation. It's a very meditative place for you, where you're able to close your eyes and go to your inside meditative space. Or it's fifth tone, you're going to notice you feel really comfortable there. There's no buzz of the electrical lights overhead. There's none of that toxic electromagnet, not that it's toxic to people who aren't fifth tone, but I've heard fifth tone people say that they're especially sensitive to, certain electromagnetic frequencies. Or your sixth tone is going to have the right feeling, the right ability to touch, right? You're going to have an area that's kind of packed with objects that to walk through it, you have to touch them. All the chairs that are there, or the benches, or maybe it's a garden, and to walk through the garden you have to touch the plants, right? So you're going to be able to kind of discern what your correct environment is. This is going to be your healing environment. This is going to be an environment where you can go to charge up, an environment that's correct for you. So look at, if you're valleys, look at places that you enjoy going. Kind of ask yourself, if you're narrow valleys, what's the proximity to the audio that you like there? If you're wide valleys, kind of start to tune in and notice what is the, what sounds are there in the distance. This is kind of a wide valley now. I'm walking. It's hard to see, but I'm walking in Santa Fe at night. I hear cars in the distance. I hear music and parties in the distance. I hear thunder in the distance. Everything's in the distance. And it's kind of a wide valley because it's very expansive. Now the other thing is just the simple. We can kind of return to the surface of it. The simple. If your valleys, don't be on the top floor. If your valleys, you need to be low to the ground. You need to be on the ground floor. You need to be in the basement. You probably aren't very comfortable being up high. You might even like to sit on Moroccan pillows on the floor. You might enjoy having a lower area of sitting in the actual house here. You might like low ceilings. I wrote a poem for someone who had valleys environment, and I started it. You weren't designed for my third floor apartment. You were designed for the lowlands. So crouch then, and I kind of go into that because, you can find the right frequency in any place. If you're valleys and you end up working at a skyscraper on a high floor, well, that's not a suitable environment for you, but there are things you can do to make it suitable. You can set up, a way to sit on the ground. People might look at you like you're crazy, but you say, I'm comfortable here. So there's things that you can do. You can find the right frequency in any location, because environment is not location, environment is frequency. So the other thing is just in general how sensitive to sound you're going to be, how sensitive to words you're going to be. Valley people, these are people who can be devastated by words, completely devastated. They're having an argument with their lover, and that person says to them something that is so cruel and so mean, and it sticks with them and it shatters them. The audio, the frequency in the voice is so important for these people because they're so attuned to what they hear. So this is something to realize. Notice, because the mind doesn't always notice this. The body is picking up on it, but the mind doesn't always notice. So here's what I want you to do. If you are valleys, just begin to attune to the acoustic. Begin to notice what people are saying to you. Notice the frequency of their voice. Notice how sensitive you are and how attuned you are to the auditory. And then start to notice what is your correct acoustic environment versus what's an acoustic environment you don't feel comfortable in. Because in some sense you're being force-fed the auditory. So maybe you're really comfortable in a field. Maybe you're wide valleys. You're comfortable in a field. You're comfortable hearing that thunder far away. You're comfortable hearing the sounds in the distance. But you're not comfortable at your office because at your office you're right next to a vending machine that goes all day long. And that's something you're going to be very attuned to because, again, you're attuned to frequency. You're attuned to electromagnetic frequency. You're attuned to acoustic frequency. So really notice that. Or maybe you're narrow valleys and you're so comfortable when you have that proximity to the sound. But you're not comfortable when it's in the other room or it's a distance over. Maybe it annoys you to no end. You're trying to work and someone's watching TV in the next room. Or your neighbor's playing piano or whatever the case may be. And it's not the correct environment for you. So that's what I want you to do. That's really your homework. If you're valleys, pay attention to the acoustic. And regardless if you're valleys or not, feel free to post examples in the comments of what you consider a valley. What's your valley? What's your narrow valley? What's your wide valley? Is it out in the landscape, out in the countryside? Or have you found a modicum of a valley in the hardscape, in the city? What do you consider the correct acoustic environment for you or for someone you know who is valleys? All right, thanks for watching.